Hi everyone. I just thought I'd stop, pull over, take a rest, and do a little hip pocket class. When I was in the Marines, we used to have these things called hip pocket classes, which is kind of weird because it was actually thigh pocket. You know, when you see people in military uniforms, they got that big pocket on the thigh. Well, that big pocket is not for anything excited. It's for notebooks. So the idea was you would have your notebook with like some kind of instruction manual. And then whenever you were like, had some dead time, you were waiting for trucks to pick you up, or the helos are about to, come in, but they're coming in late. If you're a young leader, you're supposed to do a hip pocket class. You're supposed to be ready to teach everything at any time. And my hip pocket class was Principles in Machine Gun Employment. I love that class. Asked me to do a video on that one because I got that thing memorized. Anyway, I was just thinking, like I always bring this up. One of the coolest things I learned reading is that there's a lot of, there actually is, everyone says there's no new people reading comics. There actually are. They're just like, because it's really hard to get into comics right now. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, but it's, so I talk about things. I have to remember to explain them because some people have only been into comics for a couple years. I actually got a couple people say they got into comics because of me. And I was like, Papa bless. That felt so great to hear something like that. But anyway, so I want to talk about Batgirl. So I got in a little, I've been roasting Cameron Stewart pretty good today. Cameron Stewart is a human dandelion who kind of just pops up. He did Batgirl. He's doing Fight Club, right? The most effeminate man I've run into is running Fight Club. Okay, just a little sidebar. During my hip pocket class, here's a little sidebar. Fight Club was written by Chuck Palahniuk. Chuck Palahniuk is a very, very, very masculine gay man who actually didn't come out, I think, until well into his 40s. Cameron Stewart is a very effeminate straight man. So this is the 100% wrong person to work on a Fight Club book. Anyway, there's actually kind of a funny, sad story of Chuck Palahniuk. He came out because he thought he was about to be outed. But it turns out he wasn't being outed. And then there was some interview coming out with him. He tried to get ahead of it, and he wasn't being outed. But as far as I can tell, everything's fine. But Chuck Palahniuk wrote Fight Clubs because he used to go out and get in fights. And then his thing was he would come back to his work, his regular job, with like a black eye. And he's like, no one would say anything. It was like it didn't even happen. So I thought that's really interesting. This is what I talk about. Great writers have lived life. Chuck Palahniuk, I think he grew up in like the Pacific Northwest or something like that. He's like a tough lumberjack type of dude, but he grew up in the days where you had to hide being gay, so he had a lot of conflict. He used to work it out, in like fisticuffs. A really interesting guy. Cameron Stewart is not that. But anyway, Cameron Stewart is one of those guys who just kind of like, I think he came out because of, like social media or something. He's got an okay style. I kind of like it. But he's a real little jerk and his stuff is not good. And he's obsessed with social media, but he blocks everyone. He's a spineless wiener. But anyway, we're going to get into what he did to Batgirl. So Batgirl's had a very long history. She started as a character for the Batman TV show because they were worried that they wanted to, they worried that the show had the case of the gays because it was a guy and a boy who wasn't his son and like a butler and they gave Aunt Harriet, but then that just seemed like an old queenie old lady. So they're like, oh God, we got to get a girl in here. So everyone knows we don't have a case of the gays. So they created Batgirl. Batgirl is a distaff character. She's a female version of the character. She was very plucky. She was very fun. She was, she could be serious, but she could be silly. She was a fun character, and she proceeded like that for a while until Alan Moore decided it would be really edgy to have her be paralyzed in a... I consider The Killing Joke to be an Elseworlds book. I don't know why her being paralyzed. By the way, Killing Joke is trash. It was one of those things where it always used to be spoken about in the same breath as things that have withstood the test of time, like Watchmen, The Dark Knight Returns. Killing Joke, I always just felt like it was a huge waste of time, almost like a Shaggy Dog story. Very ugly. I remember the first time I was reading it, it just felt, I had a bad feeling in my chest. It's just a cynical work of ugliness. And it's also extremely supporting of moral relativism, which is actually at the twist at the end, basically Batman lets all the air out of the moral relativism. Anyway, I didn't like it. It was ugly. It was mean-spirited. It was horrible. It was like a woman being abused, and then her father having to watch it. It was ugly stuff. Not appropriate for a superhero comic. But anyway, so then she was paralyzed all through the 90s, so she became Oracle. Oracle was a great character because they took her from being a distaff, a female copy, and they made her her own thing. She was already into computer science. She got a lot better. She became a genius hacker. She worked with all the superheroes. She had romances. It was great. Then they decided to bring her back as a superhero in one of the DC reboots. I don't remember if it was Magic or Super Surgery or something. She was back. And so originally this was going to be about how Cameron Stewart ruined Batgirl. It's actually going to be about how Gail Simone and Cameron basically made the character radioactive. So the character was like a peppy distaff girl hero for 20 years. Then for about another 20 years was an awesome original character named Oracle, who stood on her own 2 feet. Oh my gosh, no pun intended. That was the most horrible no pun intended. The character symbolically stood on her own 2 feet. She didn't have to be a female version of anything. She was a great character. She was a beloved character. She was sexy. She was fun. She was smart. She had good stories, great stories. And then they decided to make her Batgirl. It's like, all right, fine. She's had 20 years of being paralyzed. And people said, she's a great hero for handicapped people. Keep her like that. But I understood the reason to bring her back. And they gave it to Gail Simone. And Gail Simone is, how do I describe Gail Simone? In like the 90s where you'd have like the Drew Carey show, all sitcoms, the main character would have like a workplace nemesis. Like Jerry Seinfeld had Newman, and then Homer Simpson has Flanders. She always reminds me of the sitcom nemesis. She's very, very fake, very contrived. Her persona is like the cool aunt of comics. She was the original purveyor of purse puppies. She might have a civil action suit against me because I'm pretty sure she copyrighted and trademarked the whole concept of purse puppies in like 2006. Her whole thing is like, OMG, I just love the gays. OMG, women are, oh my God, blacks. And then so she started out as a fairly solid writer. In fact, one of her first works was Justice League, The Hypothetical Woman. It's great story. She did some kind of like fun stuff, but then she became La Gale, and then she became completely insufferable, and basically has done nothing of any. She's really done nothing of any importance or quality for 10 years. She just lives off of her reputation and being a social media gadfly, and she's basically like Ta-Nehisi Coates. She's not a race hustler. She's like a gender and sexuality hustler. That's how she gets jobs. That's how she keeps them. She actually got fired off of Batgirl and got her job back because of gender politics. She literally said, "This is because I'm a woman." And they're like, "Oh, rehired." So anyway, she started her run on Batgirl, and it was miserable. It was all like rainy nights and serial killers, and her brother was trying to kill her. I remember one thing that was just the worst. It was the first issue, and she got her legs back. So Gail Simone is horrible at writing female characters. They're all exactly the same person, and they're really unlikable. So Batman and Robin are like, "Hey, Batgirl, you're back. Oh, you were paralyzed." She's like, "Yeah." And then she like runs up a bridge, and they're like, "Hey, whoa, slow down." And they're like, "This is because I'm a woman, isn't it?" And they're like, "Nah, dude, you were paralyzed like 2 weeks ago." Maybe start slow, a little hot yoga. You're like running up like a 45-degree incline on a steel girder in the rain at night. Maybe take it slow. Her run was basically reviled, very low sales. Sales plummeted. She was taken off the book. She was fired by, I believe, an email or a phone call. And then she immediately ran to social media like a real strong woman would and basically said, the bad man hurted me. The funny thing is that about a month or two earlier, Jonathan Glapion, who's a really good inker, he had gotten fired by BCC. BCC is no, he was fired because they meant to do. He was accidentally in the CC line. You know, they were doing an old email and they forgot to take him out. And basically, one guy with another is like, "Yeah, Glapion's off, Mickey's on," and Glapion's like, "Glapion's right here," and they're like, "Glapion is sad." I want Jonathan Glapion to call himself Glapion and talk like this. Glapion likes seeing comics. But anyway, and he just rolled with the punches because that's what you do when you're a dude. You just roll with the punches. You just get fired and you go, can humans eat grass? Let me Google that. But anyway, so she got back on the book, and it was a great victory for women. Literally crying like that girl who used to get tied on the train tracks by Snidely Whiplash, crying like that and getting rescued. That was a big, strong case for women. And then they brought her back on, and predictably the sales were low because her stories weren't good, and she wasn't really trying. So then they rebooted it, and they rebooted it with this dude, Cameron Fletcher. And Cameron Fletcher ran it into the ground, even worse than Gail Simone, because they got a ton of promotion because they did a selfie cover, and this was like the first selfie cover, and it was huge. It was like, oh my gosh, what if a superhero took a picture of herself? So they were going for the more youthful, fun vibe. They made a costume that was very much into it was supposed to be a costume that you could make, because they realized girls don't really like comics, but they do like dressing up like comic characters. So they're like, let's make a girl hero that's very cosplay friendly. If you noticed, all of the SJW girl heroes have very, very simple costumes. Something you can make, when you go online and you go, OMG, there's like a Wizard World in my like city, like Spider Girl. I think there's a Spider Girl, and then you just make it and you go show off. But anyway, so they started off and they turned her from a genius into an airhead. Although Gail Simone kind of started that. So Gail Simone is all about the virtue signaling. So of course, like, she had like a trans Asian roommate, and then Barbara, who's supposed to be a genius detective with she's got eidetic memory, she's got photographic memory, and then her roommate had to tell her she was trans, and she was like, oh my goodness. And it's like, you would think the seat being up every morning would have been a clue. But anyway, and then they gave her like this cool hip group of like, here's my Muslim friend, here's my gay friend, blah, blah, blah. I'm in Burnside. It was like the Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It was like the hipster thing. Here's the funny thing. So they set her up as a strong, independent girl, but they basically made it into an Archie comic. And then the fourth. So Vox Dei wrote a book, and he gave the 3 rules of SJWs. SJWs always lie. SJWs always project. SJWs always double down. I believe I'm the one who came up with the 4th rule. SJWs will always turn on you. So they got started, and they had these I read the first couple issues. They were terrible. It was Archie comics. Everyone loved Batgirl. She loved herself, bragged about herself. All the villains, she beat them easily. And then something happened. Then there was a Batgirl. So everyone loved Batgirl all the time. So there was a Batgirl impersonator. It's like, okay, fine. Who wore like sequins and stuff. And then you found out there was actually a man dressed like Batgirl. So it was a villain who was trans. Here's where it gets 4th dimensional chess. The SJWs on Twitter and social media and Tumblr were livid because you're leaning forward. You're answering. You're saying because a trans person was portrayed as a villain. Nope, that wasn't it. It was way more 4th dimensional chess than that. They were angry because Barbara was surprised to find out that the character was trans. You have to pretend. Not only do you have to pretend that gender is a social contract and all that other stuff, but you can never assume anyone's gender ever. So if someone dresses like a woman and presents himself a woman and says, I'm a woman, when you find out they're actually trans, you cannot be surprised. And to this, instead of the creator saying like, Cameron Fletcher fell over himself. Was that Freudian when I described him as a woman? Fell over himself, apologizing to everyone out there. Like, complete lack of spine, no dignity at all. And then after they ran him through the ringer for a couple weeks, they finally let him go. Because although they turn on anyone, they are about, if you completely prostrate yourself, they will let you back in the club. The only price is your own dignity. But then they weren't done yet. So then they did a book where the Joker came back. So the SJWs were obsessed with Batgirl being paralyzed by the Joker. They were so incensed because somehow this was affecting all women, that a woman would be injured. They did all this fanfic where she like slapped the gun out of his hand and punched him, and it was stupid. The Joker gets the drop on everyone. He could definitely get the drop on her. She wasn't expecting it. She opened the door. And then he did like a sucker punch, like a sucker shot. Almost anyone. So all the fanfic is like, we got to redo this. We got to. So they undid it, but they made the mistake. They had a female hero deal with adversity, and that is not allowed. So there's a very famous picture of the Joker holding Batgirl with the gun to her head. She's got either blood or something on her mouth. It's a Joker smile. And she looks terrified. And he got it so much worse than the first time. They turned on him. It was ridiculous. They said that this was basically symbolic rape. They said, this is symbolically rape, and you're encouraging rape by having a villain doing a crime. You're somehow supporting the villain doing a crime. It made absolutely no sense. These people, these SJWs, they're not just wrong-headed. These are people with deep, deep mental problems, and they are horrible, evil people. I actually raised my finger in the air like I was some 1800s preacher. These are evil people because they exist to destroy things. They don't create. What's been created in the last 20 years? What? Kamala Khan? That's it. None of these SJWs can create things. They can only destroy. So what happened is, again, Cameron Fletcher Stewart, with no dignity, apologized to everyone. When someone says something crazy, when someone says something that makes no sense, this is the part where you're an adult and you have a spine and you say, heroes face adversity. Batman got paralyzed. Iron Man's been paralyzed. Superman was killed. All this is happening to her. She has a gun to her head and she's scared. She was kind of over the top scared. So when I saw the image, Raphael Albuquerque, very well done. I said, oh, he probably gave her some kind of fear. Like, it seemed like her fear was over the top, which makes sense with the Joker. She was infected with something, whatever. But no. So what they did is, in the most chicken shit way ever, they said that the artist chose to pull. Now, the artist might have he chose because of peer pressure. He chose it because of this neo-McCarthyism, this witch hunt of these SJW creeps who don't even buy comics. So basically Cameron Fletcher, he was in charge. He was he was the writer. He was the face of the thing. He folded, apologized to everyone, and then they pulled the cover. And then what happened was his run just kind of petered out. And now Batgirl's out there, and they had to hand it to a woman again. And I reviewed it. The stories were pretty bad. But this was a fan favorite character because of creepy. I'm going to call them fake feminists. People call them feminists, third wave. I'm just going to call them fake feminists. If your whole thing is to basically purse puppy all women, you're a fake feminist. Cameron Fletcher Stewart is a fake feminist. Gail Simone is a fake feminist. They took a great character that everyone loved and they turned her into, I guess I'll read Batgirl. Fine. So this is a story about how two fake feminists basically turned a good character radioactive, and now she's just what she used to be special. Or Batgirl was special. Oracle was special. This new Batgirl got a second chance and could have been special, and they destroyed her with their creepy weirdo SJW politics and complete lack of spine. So tell me what you think about this movie. I'm going to go get some Bojangles. I'm a big fan of Popeyes. I haven't tried Bojangles. Tell me what you think about this. I've tried Zaxby's. Zaxby's was great. I couldn't even believe it was fast food. It was high quality chicken. So I'm going to go check out this Bojangles. Tell me what you think about this video. Tell me what you think about, did you know about this stuff? Tell me what you think about Batgirl. Do you know she used to be a big deal? She's just Batgirl now. She used to be a big deal. Anyway, thanks for watching. My next video is actually going to be the Immortal Iron Fist, which is a Comixology exclusive. And the writer-artist actually got someone to have a copyright strike. I'll tell you the story behind that. Actually, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as it sounds. But thanks for watching.